computer. Hey, I think we're there.
Perfect.
Happens all the time. Then I just push the button, but it starts recording immediately. Hello to all of you who are listening. I'm here with Karen Jones, and Karen Jones is a lot. She's first of all a retired obgyn physician, and now I gonna put my glasses on because I have to read it. She's a mentor and a coach. Sorry that I didn't get into it. For feminine powered embodiment, she is also an energy healer, and we were just talking about energy in the house, and a meditation leader. And I'm very, very honored to have you here on our inspirational talks for the members in our group. And I would say, please introduce yourself after what I've said. But as a fellow empty nest mom, please tell a little bit about yourself.
Sure, love to. First, thank you so much for having me here. It's really an honor and also a joy and fun to be with you and all your people. So thank you so much. So yeah, as you said, I practiced OBGYN, so women's doctor delivering babies and helping women who had gynecologic issues and do surgery and things like that. I practiced in Seattle for 28 years. And during that time, I got really interested in mind body medicine. And that's how I got into energy healing. And then, kind of the short form of my story is I then began to get increasingly unhappy, even though I was in very fulfilling work. And it took a while before I finally gave myself permission to say I wasn't fulfilled in my work and give myself permission to retire and stop and start exploring and figure out and come to realize where my path was taking me now. And during that time, I'm married. I've been married for 40 years. Woohoo!
Oh,
Two
congratulations.
kids. Oh, thank you. I know it's great. I have two kids, two grown boys. And so here I was, a doctor, and raising these two kids. Thank God. I'm really fortunate. And I know a lot of the women listening didn't have that situation, but my spouse happened to have a regular 9 to 5 job. So he was so good about, making dinner and doing some of the stuff with the kids. So it wasn't all on me. So I was so fortunate. But since this is about empty nesting, I do want to speak to how it was for me as my kids were growing up. They're 4 years apart.
Okay.
And it was really interesting because, a lot of my time was with my work, my career. I was at work all day. I was on call multiple times a month. And when I was on call, I would typically sleep at the hospital. So I wasn't even home. In fact, when the kids were small, I found out that if I was home and then had to leave in the evening, go to the hospital, they'd be really upset. So that was one of the reasons I ended up just staying in the hospital at night because I didn't want to upset them or, frankly, upset me because it was really
Yeah.
hard to need to leave them when they were, young and say, Mom, you got to go, that kind of stuff. That was really tough. So as they started going off to college, uh, I hadn't really thought about the whole empty nest thing. And I was really surprised at the depth of the heart pain that caused, how much I kind of, just that ouch
Mm,
inside.
I think many of us can relate.
Oh, yeah. And then there's the whole, and I did a, reasonable job distracting myself with work and all that. And of course, over time, you just kind of get used to it and, and, and find the good parts about being an empty nester. But it was
Yeah,
so
that's what
interesting.
this group is about. It's we've all been there, and for everybody, there are different emotions, different ways of coping with all the emotions. But it's especially okay. What's next? What can we do now? How can we make it an amazing new chapter? How can we create something very nice for ourselves? So yeah, it passes and and happily, like everything. And but it's good to acknowledge that you're not alone, because that makes it also so hard, because very often we're not at the same level as our friends. Maybe we're earlier or later, and yeah, no, I think not only myself, but many of our audience can relate. But please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. And you bring up such good points that, you know, it's something we all experience in our own ways. Because I certainly have known moms who were just really, really, I'll use the word devastated, but it was really, really tough on them.
Yeah.
And especially moms were doing a lot with their kids. Because I work so much, I didn't do as much with the kids, but still there'd be things like, okay, it's time to go through the room. Mom, come and help me as I go through my room, things like that. So we would be doing things like that together, and going on vacation. We like to hike as a family, so hiking together and all that. So, but I was reflecting, when you made this offer to come and talk with you, just what did it mean for me when I became an empty nest mom? And as I reflected on that, I realized there were two things that it meant for me. One, it opened up space, and two, it opened up possibilities. Those were really the two things that come to me.
And that's
And
what's
so
often missing in the whole way of thinking when you become an empty nester, because you only see the
exactly.
dark sides of it. And this is beautiful that you bring it up, because it's so true.
Right, because what happens is, as a mom and doing the roles of a mom, pardon me, it's pretty consuming, whether you're working or not with it, whether you have a career or not. There goes my throat again. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Thank you. There's a certain amount that you're needing to do. You need to be there with the kids, maybe, whether how much you're doing in the household to keep the household running in terms of meals and laundry and shopping and to and from school, sporting events, doctor's visits, and if the kids have any special needs in any way, that's going to be even more. And then when and there is some gradual decrease in that through high school. But then all of a sudden, especially if they were like my kids off to college, so they're physically out of the house, it's like all of a sudden there's this space. And it really, because here I've had this, fairly regimented, um, what was happening in my day-to-day life. And all of a sudden there's this empty space. And it's initially scary, let alone the kids left, so there's the grief that goes along with that. But having space that where I was directing a lot of my energy towards something else, now where do I redirect it to? And here we've gone all these years and not directed it to ourselves very much.
True.
And now we have the space to direct it to ourselves. And then we can get to these very interesting questions that I'd love to speak to more. Like, we can ask ourselves, what do I now desire to create,
Did
to
you?
express?
Yeah, no, absolutely. In that moment, was that you also got a little bit in crisis with your work, or that was already, did you decided to retire before they left or after they left?
It was after, actually. So I was an empty nester for a while before there was some that was going on, as the kids were getting into college, I was starting to feel less satisfied with my work. And one of the reasons I gave to not consider retiring at that point is I wanted to continue to make money for the kids' education, because we wanted to help them with their college expenses. So, there's the 8 years when the kids were in college, because they were 4 years apart, and it's 4 years of college. So I was like, okay, gotta keep working, because yeah, good for the kids. So yeah, it's very interesting when you think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's this space, and then all of a sudden there's this opening, in terms of our roles, because we've been the role, however we did our role of mother and homemaker and spouse and our career, whatever we were doing there, the role of mother is dramatically changes. And now what do we do? And now there's this space for these more, potentially non-traditional roles to start coming up too, which is really amazing.
Yeah, no, that's
So
it's what the happiness is also about, to rediscover those passions of yourself and to learn to say yes to yourself. Because when was the last time you put yourself first in all those years? And it was always what someone else was before you. And
right,
I think many of us hardly know how to what we like in life and what we want to do. So,
right.
and then you decided to not even change completely career, because it's still working with people. It's on a different level. It's still with women. Um,
Yes.
so what exactly um, are you doing, which can be a nice inspiration for the women who are listening, or what could they learn from you?
Oh, thank you. I love to speak about this. So what I realized as I went through my process of becoming less fulfilled in my work and realized what I was really longing for was to be fulfilled. Okay. Um, that many of us women are going through the same thing. If I can digress for just a moment, because I love reminding us women of our context, how the context of our lives have changed over the last 100 years. So before probably World War II, pretty much all of us were focusing on survival. Food, clothing, shelter for the kids, the spouse, for ourselves. That was our main focus. After World War II is when women really started getting into the traditionally male roles. So we started to become doctors, lawyers, moving up the manager ladder, and all of that. So we started to do the accomplishment thing. We wanted to accomplish. I want to be a doctor. That was me. Somebody else wanted to be you know, things like that. And we started moving out of some of the more traditional women's jobs of teachers and nurses, and again, expanding. So there's this accomplishment thing, but we did it the way the guys did it, okay? Logical, linear, hierarchical, step by step, that kind of thing, externally imposed. Oh, this is how I become a doctor. I take these classes, I get these test results, I write this up. So it was very, very much that way. The last 20 years, our focus has shifted again to fulfillment, to meaning. I want my job, my career to have meaning beyond simply bringing home a paycheck. That's the way a lot of us are thinking these days. We want our relationships to have meaning. We want our vacations to have meaning, our hobbies to have meaning. So all of a sudden, we're looking for meaning. The problem is the masculine power model of linear step-by-step strategy does not work for fulfillment. Why?
What
Because
you're
fulfillment meaning comes from within.
so that's what
That's
you're
the feminine
learning.
model.
Sorry?
That's the feminine model.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what you're emphasizing in your work, from how to get in touch with your feminine side, with your feminine power, or how would you say it? Sorry that I've interrupted you, but
No, it's exactly where I was going, because basically the feminine power structure is all about your own intuition, your own inspiration, listening to yourself. And a lot of us women, especially those of us in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, we learned the masculine stuff. We didn't really learn the feminine stuff as well. So it's learning how to do both, but going into myself. So what I teach my clients and my workshops is to begin to go within, connect with your own body, number one, because most of us are in our heads and not in our body. And number two, our own heart. Our own heart is the voice of our soul. And from there, when we're connected that way, then we can ask ourselves these questions. What do I desire to create, to express in my life that means something?
and and this works for everybody, or do you have to have already a kind of a spiritual background, or you really can teach, or as a meditation leader, you have the, the guided meditations to make that, to help you to get into yourself, into your real emotional self, and that you get out of your head.
Right. So this works whether somebody's been on a spiritual path or not. This is I mean, for me, the spirituality of it kind of underpins my teaching, but it's more because that's me. This is me. But I also it's also really a lot of personal growth. So it really it's for the woman who's saying, I've accomplished all this. I'm not happy. There's more I want, and I don't know how to get to that more. So let's do it. And I'm ready to take this step into the unknown. Because for a lot of us, dropping into ourselves is unknown because we're so outer directed and mind centered.
Yeah.
So in our head.
Especially
So
the,
it's a new experience.
yeah.
So, I do things like, I'm a meditation teacher also. I've just got onto Insight Timer, which is really fabulous. And I lead meditations on my Facebook page every week, specifically around helping women and men, of course, deal with stress, start dropping the stress, drop the worry, so they can come into peace and calm. Because as a nation, as a world, there's been so much chaos, particularly this last year for obvious reasons. And we need to be able to drop into ourselves. Otherwise, many of us are fluttering right on the edge of fight or flight every minute of the dang day. And that's not a good place to be. It's really hard on us.
And it's super interesting. And for sure, this won't be our last talk, because I think you have a lot to share with everybody who's listening. And but as those interviews, I don't want to expand too much. My future goal is to do podcast once the happiness is up and running, because I think we all have so much to share and so much inspiration to give. And then it's the choice for other people to stay on for a longer time. And because a podcast, okay, beforehand how long it takes. But with these interviews, it's just a little bit of touching what you could mean for someone, and what you're doing. And do you have any tips for empty nest moms? How can they start?
Yes, that is a great question. And I had a couple of ideas. I jotted them down to make sure. Okay, so the first thing is really allow yourself to observe yourself with whatever feelings, emotional feelings are coming up. And the way I mean is, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sad, I'm so despairing, this feels so awful, instead say, I notice I am feeling really sad, that I'm experiencing that this feels really awful. And if you say it that way, instead of I am sad to I notice I'm feeling sad, what it does is it creates space between you who's witnessing yourself having these experiences. And when you have this space between the witness and the experience, there's space to breathe. And when you have that space to breathe, you can do the second part, which is accept that I notice I'm feeling sad. I'm having the experience of feeling sad. There's a sadness. Accept it, allow it, acknowledge it. It is there. Because that's really important. You can't, when we try, and I know I did this for many years, I tried to ignore these kinds of feelings, suppress it and repress it. Well, that doesn't work, let me tell you, because it just creates this deep well of undigested feelings, as it were, that you have to work through. But if you can just create the space to say, wow, I acknowledge this experience of sadness. I feel that, yes. Then you basically, you allow yourself to work through it. And then you can move on to start to ask yourself the question, what would I like to create? And one of the things a link I'll drop for your people to look at is I did an 8-minute audio that I call Deep Body, Deep Heart Connection. And in this audio, I basically guide the listener into connecting deep into their body, into their resourceful self, into their heart. And from that point, you can ask yourself these inner questions. You can regain emotional equilibrium just by doing this and come back to wherever your life is feeling less chaotic because you're calmer. And yeah, that's the third tip.
I think that is an amazing gift you're giving to members of my group and other people. I will post this also on my personal page because I think many people can use this. And what I really like about your tips, it's to acknowledge the feeling and also you are not set. It's a feeling. And from my background in family constellations, there was also this part that you set up your parts of yourself. And well, family constellations, if you don't know about it, I ain't gonna go deeper in it. But anyhow, it was about that there is a part of you is sad, a part of you is still happy, a part of you is still breathing, a part of you is still functioning. And the fact to take it out of I am, but into it's a feeling or it's just a part of me which feels like that, that brings it in a different perspective. Because if you're sad or probably, not only probably, or if you're angry, it feels like you're completely angry and
Right.
or completely sad. And then the phone rings and you have to answer and you can go into your different self and you can answer normally and you can it seems that there's nothing and then you put the phone down and you go back in your sadness, but that shows that there are different parts in you, different feelings in you, and you can touch them. And probably it depends on what the reason for sadness is. I find it sometimes difficult to say that you always have a choice which feeling you're giving the attention, but it is like that. And it's not always easy, but if you have a tool like you're about to give to our listeners, and you can find the link in the comments, and you can just take those 10 minutes out for yourself and say, okay, I'm going to sit with myself. And that is all about self care. And if you are nice to yourself, it's the first start of saying yes to yourself or taking time out for yourself. And I think that is the really beautiful thing about an empty nester. Now you have the time. So use it well. And I love your tips, and I love how they flow one to the other, and that it's just like saying it like this is just a little dance of how you can feel better. And I'm super honored that you have taken the time to tell us all about it. And sorry if I've interrupted you, but not to go too long in certain arguments, because if someone wants to get to know you better, they can always go to your Facebook group and also to hear your lives. And also from your Facebook group, we will put a link. And is there anything else you would like to share today?
I so agree with what you just said. And I think such an important point you said, which is choice, is realizing we now have choices where we didn't before, and space to explore and to really start moving into that, because it's the empty nest time is really a gift. It's like the first half of our life we're bound up in careers and families and all of that kind of stuff that takes a lot of time. And then the second half of life, then it's really our time of growth, and if I can say it, growth in our own wisdom, and begin to bring out who I am really and what I bring to the world. Because each of us has a gift that we're bringing to the world.
You have so much experience. We have raised babies to independent adults. And we have done so much along the way, but we take so much for granted. And what I'm often saying in the group, you never know how you can inspire someone with your kindness, with your gratitude, with whatever. And also to show that it's really a special gift and a very special stage in life. And that's the group is called Amazing New Chapter because I think it's amazing. Okay, Karen, I would really like to, I will salute you like this as well. And thank you so much. I hope to see you back in the future. Also to tell us about your evolving business. And thank you so much for the gift you're gifting all of us. And I wish you all the best in your new journey. And let's please stay in contact. Have a great
Yes, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be with you and your folks today. And I look forward to coming back another time.
day too. Thank you. Bye bye.